So if all goes according to plan, I'll be presenting a paper later this year at the 9th Annual International Whitehead Conference in Poland. Um, that paper will be on Whitehead, obviously, but also bringing Whitehead into conversation with Gilles Deleuze, who I've not studied as deeply or for as long as Whitehead, but whose thought has really struck me in this past year or so. Um, and the paper is called, I guess, tentatively titled, "On the Possibility of a Worldly Divinity, a Divinity of the World." Um, and I'm exploring this possibility in the context of, some general guiding statements by Whitehead and by Deleuze. Whitehead wrote in Process and Reality that we need to secularize the concept of God, and that this is perhaps the most important philosophical task of our epoch, of our era. He said this in 1927 or thereabouts. So I think certainly we're still struggling with this task to secularize God. But, on the face of it, it would seem somewhat, oxymoronic, right? God is by definition not secular, so to secularize God would be to explain it away, or to show it for the illusion that it always had been, prior to, the coming of a secular consciousness. But Whitehead's not saying that we ought to explain away God. Really, by secularize, he means bring into the world, and in that sense, make it such that God is commonly visible in public, right, to all people, so that we can, in some sense, begin to know God rather than believe. Or at least, Whitehead is going to articulate an epistemology that isn't based on an opposition between belief and knowledge, but rather is based on something prior to this distinction. It's based really on what William James called pure experience, that which is before subject and object, before the split into mind and matter, or inside and outside. And if we are to articulate our epistemology, and really our ontology ultimately, from the perspective of experience, we're not going to construe belief and knowledge as necessarily opposed, right? Because knowledge itself always arises from the same experience that belief does. So they're both rooted in this, passage of time and accumulation of habit and memory, but also the intensification of, through that accumulation of memory, the intensification of prophecy, or the ability to anticipate, to see the possibilities inherent in the present, yet to unfold, sort of withdrawn into the future and not yet actualized. So, experience includes both this reaching into the future and this grasping of the past. Perhaps we're grasped by the future as well. We don't just reach, right? It's not just intentional in a sort of libertarian way. as a sort of arbitrary freedom. We reach into the future according to certain gradations, sort of inbuilt values that are grading various dimensions and aspects of reality for us before we get to think about them or experience them. That, is God, that divine imprint on the things of the world that makes them intelligible to us. And by intelligible, meaning we can, not only remember the regularities that have held true of all of these things in the past, but we can anticipate how those regularities will play out in the future. That sort of scientific activity is a kind of participation in the mind of God. But it's a participation in the mind of God through the things of nature, right? By paying full attention to their weight, their gravity, and to their appearance, their manifestation, their revelation. It's a science based on the idea, the ultimately Christian idea, that nature, the world of corporeal things, of bodies, is the self-revelation of God. Nature is the incarnation of God, the Son of God, you might say. And in knowing it, we human beings provide a sort of spiritual link between God, the Father, and nature, the Son. In some ways, it's only through the human beings coming to be capable of or adequate to this spiritual role that God is able to redeem nature. So part of the task that Whitehead has set for us of secularizing God, I think, has to do with understanding science in its spiritual context, which means both rooting it historically and coming to see how it couldn't have emerged but within the Christian matrix, that it really is, science is the offspring of the church, and of the particular way that Christian theology, which is more than just like Christian, right? Christianity is by definition this sort of accumulation of the Jewish tradition, which is itself the accumulation of the Egyptian and the Babylonian and so on, back into the pre-monotheistic earth deities of even more ancient mythologies or mythic formations. So Christianity contains multitudes already within it. It's not so much a unique religion as it is the old religion with some one new feature, namely the incarnation. But part of secularizing God is to see science in this Christian context and to see this project that modern science has set for itself to both secularize society and to, in some ways, technologize nature, to turn nature into art. This is a fundamentally Christian, evangelical, eschatological project. it's strange to me that we would want to say that secularity and Christianity are somehow necessarily opposed. The secular modern Enlightenment project is a fully Christian project. It wouldn't have been possible without the values and self-understanding that came along with 2,000 years of Christianity, plus, the many tens of thousands of years of human religiosity, so-called pagan religiosity that came before that. There's a continuity between the ancient mysteries and the Christian mystery. I don't see this as an either-or thing. Christianity and paganism, nor do I see Christianity and science as an either-or thing. To me, you can't understand what one is trying to do without the other, without putting them, science and religion, into the same conversation as part of the same human project, as part of the same adventure of Western civilization. So, these are some of the questions I'm working through in my paper. I'll probably post a link to it in this video a little bit later tonight, as I read through it and bring it up to speed with where my thoughts are at now. So anyways, thanks for wandering through these ideas with me.